Hello and welcome to John Can Fix Anything. Today I'm going to show you how to upgrade your i7 or in some cases your i5 processor to the big purple monster, the 9900K i9 unlocked. So stay tuned. Right now, the i9 is the apex predator of microprocessors. And a lot of us have i7s and i5s. I built most of my computers and my kids' computers and a lot of my friends. So I have a lot of experience building the PCs. And a lot of the PCs out there that are in that similar category can be upgraded relatively easy to the new i9, and the i9 is an absolute beast. Just go on any of your sites like Amazon and Micro Center, any one of those type sites, and just read about the chip. It's an amazing chip. Now, what has stopped me in the past has been the price. It was pretty pricey for me, but since the longer this chip has been around, the more reasonable it's become, and I ended up purchasing this off of Amazon as an open box for $369. So I got a really good deal on this. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to, first of all, find out if your system is capable of doing it, and then second, I'm going to show you how to do it, the actual process itself. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find out if your motherboard and your associated hardware is compatible with the i9. So I'm going to reposition and I'm going to show you a website that is going to help us do just that. So stay tuned. Okay, so what you do is I want you to go to this website. It's called PC Part Picker, www.pcpartpicker.com. Okay, and you will. This is the main screen for it right here. Okay, and what this site is it's a system builder, building guide. It'll give you complete builds, let you browse products and do all those type of things. I'm not affiliated with the site, but I have used the site for many years to check my builds because it has this very neat program here called System Builder. So if you go right up here where it has a little wrench and you click this, it'll bring up the system building screen. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to pick different components, okay, and check them to see if they're build compatible. The green line shows if it stays green, it shows you that everything you pick so far is capable. It'll also give you an estimated wattage. It's a very, very handy program. So what you need to do is you need to go ahead and click on each one of these. This is the CPU, okay, and go through and find the CPU you're looking for. If you've got an Intel, you can just type in here Intel, and it'll bring up all the different ones. You can find your 9700. In my particular case, it was an 8700K. Right, so right here on the 8700K, I just go over here and click Add, and see, it just pops it right in there, and that's the actual processor that I had before I started this this video. So I'm going to go ahead and load up my saved parts list, which is right here, and there is all my components, okay, that I have for the system for my gaming rig before I switched it out. And then if you just click right here, Edit Parts List, it brings it all in, and now what I can do is I can go here and I can delete the i7 8700 core, and then I can add in the i9. Okay, so right here is the Intel Core i9 9900K, and that's the one that we're putting in. That's the big purple cube. So if you click on that and then add, there it puts it in. Now see, you're still compatible. See, it's still got a green line, and the estimated wattage changed just a hair, but not much. But it lets me know that everything I've got in here, okay, works with that i9 9900K. Now, if you want to, say I didn't have this cryo, right, and click this off, which is actually a very good CPU core. Say I didn't have that, click that off. See what it does? You get a red line. It says compatibility warning because it knows the 9900 requires a lot of cooling, and it'll actually give the details right down here. It'll tell you, look, warning, that Intel Core does not include a stock CPU cooler. Adding a CPU cooler to your part list is recommended. It's basically telling you, hey, you have got to add and it also will tell you you got to add the right one. So you can go in here and you can click CPU cooler. All right, and it'll bring up the Hyper Masters and Cooler Masters to bring up all the different editions. Okay, and you can click on whichever one you like. All right, and see if that'll work with it, because a lot of people won't have the right cooler with their stock i7 or i5. So you're probably going to have to add a cooler. The Hypers are always good, and if you click on that, see, there you go, and you know you got it. So right here is my Z90H Gaming. Okay, that's my actual motherboard. You need to go in, make sure that all the equipment you have works. And if you get that red line, then you know, look, hey, I got to go to the computer store and I've got to get an upgrade on my cooler. I got to get, I got to get different RAM or whatever. This will keep you in the green. It'll also make sure that your wattage is okay. All right, so this is what you need to do first. Go in here, look up all of the different parts. If you've got a Dell or whatever, you may or may not find your motherboard here, but you need to find one. If you don't have it here, more than likely the i9 is going to be difficult for you. But the keys here are the motherboard, it's 1151 socket, and the cooling, and also the case, because when you go and you add the i9 and you add a much bigger cooler, then you're going to have to make sure that your case has the capability to hold all that in. And if you decide, hey, I don't want to go to air cooling, I want to go to water cooling, then you can actually go to a water cooling option as well. Okay, and I think even on this one, it will actually show you some of the water cooling options as you go down through here. I'll show you a little bit more about that as I go along in the video. But anyway, this system builder is a really good tool. It'll show you if everything you have is in the green. It'll always show you what you need if you don't have all the right components. Okay, so now, all right, before we continue, after you've checked to see if your system is good and that all of your components are good, I want to make sure that you update your BIOS to the most recent BIOS. This is very important because I didn't do it on my install and I had a big mess because the i9 changes were on the new BIOS and I didn't have it. So then when I got everything finished, I actually had to flash the BIOS. I had to download the BIOS with a USB and then do a USB boot, and it was a nightmare. So find your motherboard. I just Googled mine, and here it is up on the screen. And you see right here it says BIOS, and there's the new version. I downloaded that, and a lot of them you can just hit your Control-Alt-Delete key or whatever and go into the BIOS itself, and you can update the BIOS right on your computer. It just depends on what which motherboard you have and what kind of software it uses. But in any case, just Google it, the exact motherboard you have, download the new BIOS, and go ahead and flash the BIOS. Do that before you start taking your computer apart to change the chip out. Okay, very, very important, so don't forget to do it.
All right, before we get started, I'll just kind of go over the basics for what you're going to need. Of course, you're going to need the Intel, you're going to need the i9, and you'll be able to get that either on Amazon or Micro Center, Newegg. There's a lot of places out there. Just start shopping around for it now. I happen to get mine on Amazon, but I have done a lot of shopping at Micro Center in the past as well. I'll leave links to everything down in the description. You feel free to go down and look at them, click on them, check pricing, or do it or don't. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter to me, but you got to have the i9. You're going to need some thermal paste, and make sure you get some pretty good thermal paste. I use the Ice Mountain because I like it really well, and it's reasonable. And it'll come with a little paste brush that you can, paste it off on the actual chip itself. You may need some zip ties because you're going to have to cut a few zip ties when you're getting into your motherboard and taking some certain things off. I like to use the electrician's actual screwdrivers. Okay, these are Phillips, and if you need a flat tip for your particular application, then get that. I have a pair of needle and pliers here because I have a Cryo Air CPU cooler, and it requires that to get that off, so I have that. Very important is a lot of people forget, and that is a static line. You want to make sure that you have a static line and you ground yourself, because so many people start into this stuff, they don't do that simple thing, and then you get a static discharge and you ruin your CPU, or you ruin your motherboard or some particular component. So make sure you use that. Okay, use it all the time. These are the basics. Now your particular system may require something else. You may need a little crescent wrench or whatever. So look at your system, look at your case and everything, decide what you need, and then have those proper tools available so that you can have them. This is basically what I'm going to start out with, and if I need something else as I go along, I'll show you. But I'll have links for everything down in the description so you can look for anything you look for. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my actual computer case, and I'll be back. Now, as you can see, I use a Thermaltake. It's a P5 open concept case, which is fabulous for doing what we're going to do, which is I'm going to show you how to get to your CPU and change it out. Now, if you've got a standard case, then you've got to go ahead and take that case apart and, of course, get to the unit itself. But everything basically is going to stay the same here, okay? You're still going to be looking for the same components, okay, except it's just going to be inside the case. In my case, it's going to be underneath this Cryo CPU cooler. Okay, now I don't think I'm going to have to do much more than that, but you may have to. I've got my graphics card side mounted with a side mount plate and an extra cable, which keeps it off of the motherboard. Now you may have to remove that. Okay, it just takes one Phillips and you can pull it right off, but you may have to take that off. There may be other things that you've got to do, to get to that CPU. And it's really up to you, up to what you have. So just take a good look at it first and determine what you got to have. All right, but mine is just a lot simpler process. There was one other thing that I determined you're going to need, and that's you're going to need a little pair of cutters to cut existing cable ties off with. So I'm going to go grab those cutters and I'll be right back. Okay, for my particular unit, I just had a couple of fan wires I had to take off right here and here. Okay, and then because I've got 32 meg RAM and I've got a very big cooler, CPU cooler, I'm going to have to take this fan off so that I can get all of my RAM out. Okay, and then I'll be able to get to those screws that I need to get to. So I'll have to reach in here and grab these on each side, pull this off, take that and move that out of the way, and then I'll go ahead and grab my RAM. Make sure you're grounded when you're doing this. Okay. Some of these have single levers and some have double levers on the motherboards. Okay, now I can get to those screws and I can go ahead and get the screws off, and then I can go ahead and pull that up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you how to pull that off, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I've got those off, and now I can just go ahead and lift this off just like that. And that's your unit. You can see there's my thermal paste. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, make a list. You're going to have some cotton balls and some alcohol, cleaning alcohol. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that so I can clean that up, and then I will show you how to take the 8700 out and replace it with the 9900. And we'll also have to show you how to open up the purple cube as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab some alcohol and get those cleaned up, and then I'll show you how to take the chip out. Okay, so what I used is just used the cotton rounds. It's some of my wife's makeup rounds. I'll show you what they look like. They're this type. They're less grainy and they don't have as much leftover residual on the cotton, but they're called cotton rounds, and I used isopropyl alcohol. Went ahead and cleaned everything up. Cleaned up my CPU fan. Okay, so make sure you're back grounded again, because you're getting into the CPU now. So you want to make sure you're grounded up. Okay, now you see on mine and most, you've got a little hook lever right here. Okay, you just take that hook lever, just pull it out straight, come straight up with it, just like that, and just fold it over to the side. Now your 8700 is free. Okay, you should just be able to take your hand, just lift it right off, just like that. Okay? Make sure you put that somewhere safe and you don't mess that up, because if I'm going to resell mine if I get an opportunity to. Okay, so this looks really good. It's clean. You might want to just touch it up a little bit if you think you got any of the thermal paste. Actually, it all looks pretty good. Now we're ready to go ahead and grab the core, the i9 core. So I'm going to reset so that I can show you how to open up the i9 core box and how to handle that as well. So I'm going to get reset and I'll be right back. Alright, so we are ready to go ahead and open up the i9 case. Okay, I have never done this before, but there are actually several videos out there on how to do it. Okay, so if you look at the case, you'll see, you know, there's your information right there about the actual chip itself, and then you'll see this seal right here. Just go ahead and cut that seal. Okay, and this will just fall off just like that, and then it should just open up. Since I've never done it before. They always say it's easy, but then it never seems to be easy. Oh, there's another seal. Okay. Forgot, I didn't see that one. Alright, so there's one more seal here. Let's make sure there's no more. Now, I'll bet we probably won't have any problem. And there's another. There's 3 total seals. And that was not shown on the video that I looked at. Okay. There we go. And there we go. Pull it off just like that. Very neat. Really cool. They totally overdid this. And there is your i9 9900K. Okay? And of course you don't have a fan, so if you didn't have a fan, then you need to go get a fan, and you better get a good fan because these are kind of known for being hot. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and reposition everything, put my computer back here on the stand, and then we'll be back and I will show you how to put this into your computer, and we'll be right back. Alright, so I've got my PC back in front of the camera now, and it's all set up so that I can show you, and I'm grounded. Make sure that this is up and out of the way. Okay, and I will grab the i9. There's only one way this is going to go in there. Okay, and if you'll notice, there are notches. Okay, it's only going to fit one way. You cannot mess this up unless you just force it. Okay, so you've got notched edges. I'll show you these notches. See this little notch? There's a little notch on this side. There's a little notch on that side. Okay, and if you look on your CPU, there's a notch and a notch. Just take it. Like that. Okay, it's just going to fit right in there. It's cornered on this side and notched on that side. Okay, then just flip this over. See how this is going to slide in underneath there, just like that. Slide it in, lock it up. Okay, that's the way it's supposed to be. Now that's already set and sealed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the new thermal paste that I've got, and this is Ice Mountain #1. I got that off Amazon. There'll be a link somewhere. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and hit this with the Ice Mountain, and it doesn't take as much as people think. And everybody's got a different way of doing this. Okay, and I really don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. Just make sure that you get enough on it. Okay. And I didn't, so I'm going to put just a little bit more on. Probably over a little bit, but it's okay. it'll clean up fine. Okay, just wipe that over a little bit. You got excess, go ahead and take it off. Okay, so now that's ready to go. And I have went ahead and I have cleaned my fan. I got that all cleaned back up. Okay, so now that's going to go right back on, and I'm going to go ahead and attach it. Now, if you didn't have a fan system and you go and buy something similar to this, you're going to need to go ahead and pull your motherboard up, because you've got to put those bolts on the bottom of your motherboard so that they go up through and you'll be able to put your fan on. Just read the instructions or watch a dozen videos on YouTube on how to install that fan. Or if you decide you want to do water-cooled, same thing there. You've still got to get on the back of that motherboard, okay, and you've got to install those, whether you're going air-cooled, water-cooled, or whatever. If you've already got one like I did, then you're way ahead of the game, and all you've got to do is go ahead and put that back on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do that and get that tightened back up, and then I'll show you how that's completed, and then I'll just hook my cabling and put my RAM back on, and then we're going to see what we got. So we'll be back. Okay, so I've got my CPU fan back on, and I've got it tightened up. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my RAM back in, because I couldn't, you know, I had to get these tightened up before, so I had to take my RAM out. Okay, one-way RAM will fit in and out. Okay, you've got a short side and a long side. There's really no way to mess that up unless you just force it. Okay, just like that. You'll feel it click. Two, and my rip jaws. And again, I had to use those shorter ones because of my fan. I couldn't get my fan on with the larger G-skull, so I had to use the HyperX. Okay, now those are all back on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my fan back on, run my fan cable back through. My fan just goes on just like this. See how that's how come the HyperX fits so well, because it was a low profile. Okay, just like that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and run this back around. I'm going to have to run it through here and run it back up through, and then I'm going to go ahead and hook these two back up. I've got to hook this one back up, and then do one zip tie, and we'll be ready to go. So I'll be right back after I get that done, and we'll go from there. Alright, I've got everything put back together, and we're almost ready to hit the power button, but there's one more small thing I need to show you, and that's about the BIOS. Okay, so when we had the old BIOS in there, and we updated it, but it was still updated on the i7 chip. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to clear that BIOS off of the motherboard. Now I'm going to show you where the battery is on mine, but you're going to need to look it up on yours and find out where that battery is that holds the BIOS, and you're going to have to take that battery out. Let me reset, and I'll show you where mine is, and then you can find yours. You can probably Google it or look in your manual, and then you need to go ahead and pull that battery. So let me reset, and I'll show you where mine is. Alright, so if you look right here, right there, now on mine, that's my BIOS battery right there. It's going to be on the motherboard. It's probably going to be the only battery on the motherboard. Okay, wherever it is, just look in your manual or Google it and you'll find it, but it's right there. Okay, and what you need is you need a flat tip screwdriver, and then what you've got to do is on one side of the battery or the other, there's a little clip. Okay, and on mine it's on the right here on the back side. So all you have to do is just pop that clip out and just let the battery fall off, or take the battery out yourself. Okay, let that set for about 2 minutes. Okay, with no power, nothing on, the battery out. Okay, and then you're good to go. Your BIOS will be clear, and you'll be ready to go ahead and start up. Okay, now I've already done it. But go ahead and make sure you do that now. That way your BIOS isn't going to flash for an i7 chip that doesn't exist, and it'll flash for your new i9 chip. Okay, so now I'm going to get ready and we're going to fire it up. Okay, here we go. Oh, turn the main power on. All right. Everything looks like it's starting up, and I'm getting all my lights on my motherboard all look like they're showing good. Which is right here on mine. This is my motherboard light right here, and there came on my display right now. And man, it came up quick. Wow, I didn't even see the BIOS come up at all. So my screen is already up. Let's type in my password here. Alright, there's my, everything's back. If you look on mine to see right now, that's my original screensaver. All my programs are here on the sides. My upper screen's working. So let me type in my PC. We got. And then you can just right click on this PC and do properties, and there it is. Let me pull this over so you can see it. And there it is. i9-9900K CPU and 32 gigabyte of RAM. Up and running. So there it is. Hopefully this video helped you out, and if it did, please give us a thumbs up. And if you've got any questions, please leave them in the remarks, and I'll do my very best to answer everything I can. And I appreciate it, and have a great day.